Is that a breakup?
I think we have a situation right here.
On the Feeling Station.
Hello?
Hi.
Hey, what's happening?
Nothing much.
Welcome to the Feeling Station.
Thanks for having me.
For those who are listening to the podcast for the first time, it touches on breakup stories that people would like to talk about with a view to give you, the listener, lessons from my guest experience. And one of the reasons why the podcast is doing great is I do my best to keep my guests anonymous, which brings me to the fun bit. Are you ready for this one?
Yes.
So this is the part where I give you the name that you're going to use for the duration of the episode. And your name comes from East Africa. And I hope you have a pen and paper for this one.
Mhm.
And the name is Wawira, which is Wawira.
Okay.
Yeah, Wawira. And what that means is that somebody who is industrious and hardworking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does that describe you? Would you consider yourself?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
How so?
I mean, even in this story,
Yeah.
I'm the hardworking one trying to make stuff work, but also in my life, I'm very hardworking.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice. And what are you calling the name of the person that you're going to talk about today?
I don't know why, but the name Aaron came to mind.
Aaron, just Erin?
2 A's, RON.
Oh, Aaron. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Is that relatable? Do you have a close friend called Aaron, an uncle? Why Aaron specifically?
No, I
No?
don't know. It just kind of popped into my head. I
Okay.
don't know.
Cool. So the story is about Wawira and Aaron. And the second reason why the podcast is doing great is that there are real life lessons that people learn from the story you're going to share. So, what would you like people to learn from what you're going to share today?
Well, I got a couple for you.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is the bare minimum is not enough.
Ooh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
You've always got to go the extra mile.
Yeah, or try,
Okay.
really.
Okay. And then the second
Um,
one?
don't stay with someone who isn't willing to seek help.
Ooh, okay. Seek help in terms of?
Mental health.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And do you have a third?
Yeah. The last one is if your relationship makes your mental health worse, something is wrong.
Oh, yeah. You really got to be somebody who would help you elevate yourself, right?
Yes.
And if that is not happening, it's really not worth keeping because it's only going to make it worse for everyone.
Yes.
Cool. So I'll play those back. First lesson up is the bare minimum is not enough. At least
Mhm.
try and go the extra mile. Second lesson, don't stay with someone who will not seek help. And the help we're talking about specifically here is mental health. And then last but not least, if your relationship makes your mental health worse, then something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's get into it, Wawira. So where did you meet Aaron and why did you decide he's, the person that you want to be with?
So we actually met on a dating app.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
Yeah, Bumble.
Oh, yeah. Is
Yeah.
is Bumble the one that you get to choose who you want to talk to?
Yeah, that's the one that the woman starts the conversation in like
Ah.
a heteronormative
Okay. So,
relationship.
so out of interest, what is it about him that you saw that, and you're like, ooh, I like this about Aaron specifically?
He asked a question in his like little bio,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was really easy to kind of start talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of men, unfortunately, on those apps, I'm sure women do it too, but they make it really hard to start a conversation. There's like no information
Yeah.
of worth or like that's
Yeah.
helpful in their bio.
What's that particular
So
thing in his bio that you were drawn to? I'm curious
he
now.
said, "What's your passion? What are you passionate about?"
Ooh.
Hmm?
Okay. That's a very nice hook to bring someone in, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because you get to talk about yourself and then it just feels like somebody's actually listening to what you're saying.
yeah.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that drew you in. And then?
And then we, got to talking. And then we decided to meet up. He asked me if I wanted to meet up for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And so we do. We meet up for lunch and we stay at, we stay there from lunch until closing.
Wow.
Yeah, just talking.
That was a good first date.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. was like 8 hours or something. It was crazy.
That is nuts. And then at the end
Yeah.
of it, did you guys go to your separate homes?
Yeah, so
I was
he
hoping for a bit more drama. I'd say that went back to
it's
my
just the
came over to.
first date. I mean,
Okay, yep,
he
yep.
so he walks me to my car
Mm-hmm.
and he said, would you want to do this again sometime? And I said, oh yeah, definitely. And I asked him, would you want to do this again sometime? And I still remember he said very much so.
Mm.
Hmm.
This guy left a strong impression on you because you remembered what was in his bio and remembered the last few words he said just as you
Hmm.
were at the car.
Yeah.
I guess it's actually a shame that you guys are talking in past tense because so far it sounds pretty good.
It was great at the beginning.
Okay, so you guys have met. You've obviously exchanged numbers.
Mhm.
You've had your first date, and I'm guessing you went home with the buzz, right?
Oh yeah.
And then, how did it progress from that point on? How did you guys then become boyfriend and girlfriend?
So we kind of kept going on dates. We both are really into music. And so we would kind of like trade songs back and forth. We would go on dates like once a week. And then, um, we were talking about what we were interested in. We were both interested in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And, he asked me if I wanted to be exclusive and,
Ooh.
yeah, just see each other. And I said, yes.
You see, for me, that's the thing. That's always very important because there are so few people who do it nowadays. As to be
Yeah.
exclusive, people just have a really good conversation. They vibe. Before you know it, they're an item without either one of them saying that they're an item. And that always
Yeah.
breeds problems because when somebody really, really catches feelings and the other one doesn't, they get upset. And then the one who doesn't have as many feelings says, "Oh, why are you upset? We're not an item." So for
Yeah,
him,
they start to pretend like just because you didn't define it.
exactly. So for him to want to define it is a really good thing. But was he defining it at your prompt or he was defining it from his own initiative?
From his own initiative.
Nice.
Yeah,
This guy sounds very intentional from the
I
onset.
know.
So what did you say? Yes or no?
Oh, I said yes, of course.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you guys then become an item.
Hmm.
You continue hanging out.
Yeah, we were continuing to hang out, and then probably like 7 months or so into our relationship,
Mm.
we actually moved in together.
Whoa!
Yeah.
What? Okay, so did he move into yours, or you moved into his, or you guys both found a fresh pad to move into?
Both found a fresh place.
And
Hmm.
who initiated this whole thing about moving in?
That was me.
Why?
Because at the time I was living with family to try and save money,
Yes.
and I was not having a very good time with that. It was leading to a lot of strain between me and that family member. It was leading to a lot of fights, and it just got really intense. And so I had a huge fight with this family member, and I was talking to him about it. He did bring it up. He
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, let's just move in together." And I was like, But wait, but it's not just because of this fight though, right? Because I don't want to move in together if it's just because, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get away from this family member." And then we kind of had this discussion about it, and I was like, "Yeah, let's move in together." And then yeah,
Wow.
and so it was, it was the topic came up because of something that was happening in my life. But
Yeah. For a lot of people that I know personally, the decision to move into a place with someone is huge.
mhm.
And they kind of go back and forth over a 3 to 6 month period until one of them goes, okay, do you know what? I think let's not waste any more time. Let's do this. But this is like a year, 18 months into the relationship. So 6 months for me sounds very quick.
It was, for sure. But
S-
I mean, looking back,
Mm,
maybe I wouldn't that quickly, but we were both so sure
mm-hmm.
And there were no red flags at the time. There was nothing that would, that gave me pause and made me think, maybe I should wait
Maybe
this out.
later. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So you guys do the whole moving thing. What was the first month like with this guy living with him? Was he any different to what it was before?
I mean, yeah, because, you go from missing each other all of the time
Yeah.
to being with each other all the time.
Was that a good thing
Um,
or?
it was. It
Mm-hmm.
was a good thing. We found a really good balance of spending time together and also spending time kind of near each other, but doing our own thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were actually doing really well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that there's this really flowery description of things that are going very, very well in a relatively
Mhm.
quick period of time, which is always a plus. How
Yeah.
how and when did things start going wrong? Because I'm not picking up anything that would have made me suspicious from day one.
I know. So, really, when things start going wrong is when the pandemic hits.
Oh, COVID.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Ruins everything.
It's funny. I would have been more not really. How do I describe this? COVID put some people apart because we weren't allowed to travel, but you guys were now in the
Yeah.
same place. So if
Hmm.
COVID is keeping you in the same place, I would have thought things would get better because you got more of each other.
It really, the problem was that it affected both of our um, mental health struggles. And then it started this anxious avoidance cycle.
So, speaking about your mental health troubles, only because you've mentioned it in a way that makes it sound like it was pre existing for both of you.
It was.
Is this a discussion that you guys had beforehand?
Absolutely. That was actually something that was in the first or second date. I can't remember. But
Uh,
it was pretty early.
what did you guys talk about as far as that goes?
So he told me that he struggled with depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that I struggle with anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah. And just kind of talking about how that manifests.
Yeah. Now, for a lot of people dealing with mental health issues, some are very in tune with it because they understand their triggers. And because they understand the triggers, they can try and deal with things before they get to that breaking point. Did both of you guys understand your triggers?
No. And that is where the problems started happening.
Okay. Right.
So I understood mine a little more,
Mm-hmm.
and I was more willing to um this is where the don't stay with someone who isn't willing to seek help comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I was more willing to seek help, and um during the pandemic and COVID and everything, I did eventually seek help, and I got a therapist. And because my anxiety was really, really affected by all of that, because my job changed, the whole world changed,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything. It was a lot to deal with at once. And that was very triggering for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did seek help, and he didn't.
Okay, so you clearly understand what your trigger was as far as
Hmm.
this goes, and when these events such as COVID happened, you went out and you sought help from a therapist who was then able to help you navigate the waters with all of
Hmm.
this. But how was that now impacting your relationship from the onset?
It was causing me to be incredibly insecure
How so?
in the relationship. Constantly checking in, like, are you mad at me? Are we okay? Just,
Is this because you'd have had a fight?
nope, not yet.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna have to walk me through this because I'm picking bits and pieces. Well, it sounds like at some point you guys would have had a fight, but
Hmm.
before that, you're already asking questions. Are you mad at me? Why would he be mad at you?
This is something that kind of goes back to the anxious attachment style.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, when you have inconsistency from a caregiver growing up,
Mm-hmm.
you learn to think that really normal things are actually like things that are telling you that something is wrong. Like you start to learn that like silence is bad, and like someone having just like a normal kind of blank face
Mm-hmm.
means they're mad. Because that inconsistently kind of constantly makes you question.
I
And so then when
see.
you're in a relationship and you're faced with the same thing and your anxiety level's really high,
Okay.
you're like, okay, you're mad at me, something's wrong. Yeah,
This
it causes
this
you to be insecure.
this is starting to make sense because
Mhm.
but what I often find happening with me is I have these moments where I just want to have absolute silence. Whether whether it's driving or it's at home and I don't know music, I just want to have a quiet moment.
Yeah.
And then I'm often asked, "Oh, what's wrong?" And the response
Yeah.
and the genuine response is, "Oh no, nothing is wrong. I just want some peace and quiet." But it's never perceived in that manner.
But
You
that's
know?
the problem, is
Yeah.
that that's what I thought was happening. I thought I was ruining my relationship by questioning things and being insecure.
Mm,
And then, like 5 months in to, COVID really starting to affect things,
mm.
he tells me I've been thinking about leaving.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
the whole 5 months?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what was his reason for thinking that for 5 months?
He was saying he felt like he was making things worse for me. He said he wanted to be alone. Um, he said, like it was incredibly confusing because on the one hand, he was saying, I love you. I don't want to not be with you, but I have this like urge to leave and be alone.
Hmm.
And that sounded to me like the depression that he wasn't dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
was trying to like, isolate him, because that's what depression does. It isolates people and makes them feel like they're a burden on people, on everybody in their life.
Wow. And I mean, what was his reasoning behind that?
There was no reasoning. There was no
Zero,
reasoning.
zero whatsoever.
No. I mean, the only thing he gave me was, that he just like felt this urge to be alone and leave. And that was the only reason I got.
Right. So I got one important question to ask.
Mhm.
What is it that you guys both liked about each other the most that formed the foundation of your relationship?
We both had a lot of empathy
For each other.
for each other, but also for people in general.
So how would that hold you guys together? So let's say you got empathy for uncles, nieces on your side, and he has empathy for uncles and nieces on his side.
Mhm.
That's got nothing to do with empathy for you guys.
Well, we had empathy for each other as well. It was just, um, he hadn't told me. And so I could empathize and kind of understand that it was probably tied into the depression. And he could empathize with me and be like, I just freaked her out. Because essentially what it sounded like to me
Mm,
was, your anxiety has been right for the past 5 months. You thought you were trying to push it down because you thought, I thought that I was ruining my relationship because the pandemic and all the changes from COVID was making me really intense
mm,
and making my anxiety really intense. And this kind of goes to, the point of, or the lesson of, if your relationship makes your mental health worse, something's
mm-hmm,
wrong. I thought I was just being triggered by the pandemic, and I wasn't. I was
mm.
also being triggered by my relationship
Yeah, of course.
because,
Yeah.
yeah, because he was starting to
To
be
drift.
avoidant
Yeah.
and pull away. Hmm.
So right now, as far as empathy goes, it doesn't feel like it's enough to sustain a relationship. Be-
Yeah,
because all it is just being able to connect with somebody's emotion, either when they're happy, when they're sad, they're ecstatic. Okay.
yeah.
So that's element one.
Hmm.
I feel you guys needed something deeper, so I'm going to ask the same question. What else did you guys have to hold your relationship together?
Fun, honestly. We just
Okay.
had a lot of fun together. We liked a lot of the same stuff. We
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of the same passions, one of which was music.
Mm-hmm.
We would go to, before, the pandemic started, we would go to concerts a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, we had a lot of fun together, and we
Okay.
really enjoyed being around each other.
So here's a question. Remove fun from the equation, then what happens?
Well, then you start to notice some of the differences between some of the things that some of like the our nature. Our
Mm-hmm.
nature was different.
So I have fun maybe once a week, which is either on a Friday evening or on a Saturday, which means I got 6 days of no fun. And if you guys were together, let's say, how long were you guys together for?
3.5 years.
So for 3.5 years, if we say that we only had fun once a weekend, that means that you would only have fun 52 times in a year.
No, I mean we really did enjoy each other's company
Hmm.
until
Until things started going south.
exactly.
So the point I'm trying to drive at was so far from what I'm hearing from your guys' discussion, there's a lot of stuff that you guys were able to tap into if you needed an energy boost, if you needed something to make you guys feel better about yourselves. But fundamentally, I haven't yet quite grasped what it is that would have really locked down the relationship.
That was one of the issues
Mm.
looking back, is that I
Mm-hmm.
think really any big something could have
Mm-hmm.
knocked us off balance.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
the pandemic just so happened to occur,
Yeah, yeah.
2 years
Okay.
in.
So he's now struggling with his mental health, over this whole 5 month period. The depression is kicking in, and he really just needs this alone time to perhaps collect himself and re-energize and see if he can give himself 100% in the
Mhm.
same way that that you want him to be.
Mhm.
It doesn't sound like he was able to get to that point.
No.
What happened then?
And that leads to the don't stay with someone who isn't willing to seek help
Yeah.
lesson. So we did seek help together, and that was spurred on by me.
Mm-hmm.
We started couples counseling
Okay.
because that was him not telling me was a huge red flag
Mm.
to me.
So him not telling you that he deals with depression?
No, him not telling me for 5 months that he was thinking about leaving.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, 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 yeah. And
That was like
that's a massive red
huge red
flag
flag.
because what that really essentially means that he was busy preparing himself for the exit and starting to mourn the loss of the relationship way before
Mhm.
you.
Exactly. And I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these therapy and counseling sessions, how do they go in the room?
They go well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I trusted that we were both um, fully investing
Mm-hmm.
in that couples therapy and
Mm-hmm.
both being fully honest.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, later come to find out we're not both being fully honest
So what were you
and
being dishonest
investing.
about?
I was being honest and, really putting everything I had into the couples therapy.
So if you
And
were, you wouldn't have said we were being dishonest.
I think I was trying to be nice.
Okay, so he was being dishonest. What was
He
he
was
being?
holding stuff
What
back.
what was he being dishonest about?
He was being dishonest about um, whether he thought we could work long term.
Is this something that was new, or this is something that he knew from day one?
This is something that was new and had so here's the kicker, okay? Here's the thing that really sucks. But
Mm.
before the pandemic, he had been looking for rings.
Oh,
hmm He was thinking, and I was thinking, getting engaged. We were 2 years in, still very much in love. We'd had like little, spats, but nothing huge.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic hits.
Mm-hmm.
5 months later, I'm thinking about leaving. And then, I didn't know this at the time, but he stops looking.
Oh.
He stops looking for rings and starts to question if we are going to work long term.
So when he's questioning all of this, did you ask why he was thinking that?
He wasn't telling me the full truth, is the problem. So we were in couples therapy, and he talks about, struggling with depression. He talks about struggling with me needing more support because my anxiety is super triggered at the time. But he doesn't talk about how he's questioning things this much.
Mm-hmm.
And he's holding it back. And that's where even more problems begin.
Okay, tell me about more of these problems.
So we stay in couples therapy. I continue with my individual therapy to work on my anxiety, and he doesn't seek help.
Mm.
So his depression gets worse, and then he gets fired from his job.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you can imagine, that's a huge hit to his self-esteem, and it makes the depression way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then he is just kind of stuck with himself and the depression all day. And he still doesn't seek help.
What did you do to help him?
I tried to encourage him to seek help. I continued being like, okay, let's go and, still invest in this couples therapy and make sure we're okay. Because if we're okay, that leaves you more space to focus on yourself and get help. Basically, I'm thinking the way that I would approach the situation.
Mm.
And so we stay in couples therapy, but he doesn't seek help, and the depression gets worse. At this point, he is starting to run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
And he's playing video games and watching TV like all the time, being very avoidant. It basically putting a huge strain on the relationship, unfortunately, because the depression is really taking hold.
So, just listening to what you've just said, for me, the idea to try and get couples therapy is helping us as a unit, not him.
Exactly.
And then the whole concept of playing video games and spending time and trying to be away and it having an impact again is on us as a unit. And one of the things that you guys were very good at from the onset is being empathetic with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So you can connect into his feelings. And by you being able to do so, you should be able to pump all energy to him. And he should be able to connect with your feelings and pump all his energy to you. But what this sounds like is a lot of the energy you're pumping is to pump into you guys as a unit, not him as an individual.
Well, the problem is he wouldn't seek help from me either. So, whereas when I would be struggling with my anxiety, I could kind of articulate, okay, I'm struggling. Can you help with this or could you do this? His coping mechanism was to push his feelings down
Mm-hmm.
and not cope. And so that, of course, and it just kind of leads back into the cycle. That, of course, makes the anxiety worse because I know something's wrong.
Yikes.
Yeah, but at this point, he's pushing it down and not talking about it.
And now you're worried that you can't get through to him, so that increases
Yeah.
your anxiety again.
Yes.
And then perhaps you feel that if you push too much,
Yep.
he will push further away, and that increases
Exactly.
you. Oh my gosh.
So you see the cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm guessing by this point things like intimacy and all of that were out of the window.
Yep.
For how
Yeah.
long?
For a year.
What do you mean for a year?
Like we weren't having sex. I was instigating more kisses. Like he was still he was more reactive than he was actually seeking.
Proactive, yeah.
Mhm.
Yo, I almost don't know where to go with this because I can see that the pattern is not going to get broken unless there was a breakup of the relationship, which I guess did happen at some point.
Yeah. So this is really the part where we get more into anxious avoidant
Mm-hmm.
and also into like the empathy because I could empathize with him so much.
Mm-hmm.
I saw these red flags and I stayed
Why did you stay?
because I thought it was worth it. I could still remember and see what we had been before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like that thought of like, if we could just, and then it turned into more, if he could just get help, we could have a chance at going back to the strong couple we seemed like before.
You see, the thing with help is a funny thing. I remember when I was dealing with the loss of my mum and the loss of a really good friend of mine and my uncle, which all happened within a period of 6 months.
Oof.
Getting this help was extremely difficult in the
Yeah.
sense that I was brought up in a culture where you're expected to be strong physically, emotionally, and mentally. And seeking that sort of help is a sign of weakness. And I didn't want to admit that to myself. And so it was extremely difficult just getting to that point. But, there's a day I just couldn't get out of bed. That's when I realized, okay, I need to do something about this. And then I sought help.
Yeah.
So perhaps Aaron was dealing with the same thing. In that perhaps he felt seeking help would be an admission of failure and a sign of weakness, which men are not meant to exhibit.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So did he eventually try and get some? Because it doesn't sound like he did, just basing it on the lessons.
He never did. He never did. We continued couples therapy, and the couples therapist continued to. One of the things that she would say a lot is that he needed individual help.
Mm-hmm.
And it did get harder, obviously, when he was fired because then he didn't have his health insurance anymore.
Yeah.
But the couples therapist did provide him with different options that, were you didn't have to have health insurance. It was a cheaper rate, stuff like that. And he still wasn't seeking help. And he got to the point where he wasn't getting out of bed, like stuff like that, but it didn't
Mm-mm.
trigger a reaction.
I'm
There
guessing by
was
this point
no,
you're dealing with
yeah,
not only the anxiety but frustration.
yes.
And given that kind of situation, I would have been scared to pull the trigger and say, okay, this is not working, because it would have potentially sent him worse into that whole spiral.
Yeah, exactly.
So how did you deal with the breakup?
Well, I didn't break up with him. That's the that's part of bare minimum is not enough. He at that point he really was offering probably less than bare minimum in the relationship.
Wow.
And I stayed because of my empathy and because I could see how much he was struggling.
Yeah.
And then you know, maybe not a year later, but months later, things have been horrible. Still in couples therapy, but it's very much, I didn't know this at the time, but I was being 100% honest. He's still holding things back. He breaks up with me.
How did he do it?
I came home from going to see my niece and nephew, and he had written this whole thing. And at first, he wanted me to read it. And I was like, no. I want you to read it to me because I got scared.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got scared. I was like, uh-oh. And so he said, I want to break up. And he said he wanted to leave. Here we go again. He
Mm.
wanted to leave. He still loved me, but he was at a point where he wanted to stay with me instead of genuinely wanting to.
Talk about mixed messages, eh?
Truly. And he was saying, like I've been trying to stay because I know how much our relationship means to you,
Oh my
but I just
God.
can't do it anymore. Mm-hmm.
This really makes me feel he wasn't really into this from the get-go.
I
Because
thought about that and I
yeah,
don't really know.
because like I mentioned earlier on, it really doesn't feel like there was anything of substance that was being offered by either one of you to make the relationship indestructible. So one of the things that I always say to people is, avoid making love the foundation of either getting married or staying in a relationship, because love is fickle and it
Mm,
dies.
yeah,
So the moment it dies, you literally have nothing to hold your feet together and you all just crumble,
yeah,
right? And so in the absence of that, he genuinely couldn't find something to give you guys because, okay, he understood what you were passionate about. You're passionate about music, concerts, and you're empathetic,
yeah,
right? But without a job, it means that you can't go for your concerts and you can't go out and enjoy music. So you remove those from the equation, you're literally standing on air,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you guys are literally just going to crumble. So in terms of being honest, in terms of not having anything to give, I think he was being honest about
Yes.
that he had nothing more to give. And for you, because you're an anxious person and wouldn't want to hear that sort of thing, then your world also started to crumble because you'd feel like this is a failure.
Yeah.
So when he reads this, how do you then take it and process it?
Horribly. Just a lot of tears and asking
Mm,
why, why he, hadn't given me the chance to, basically like, okay, well, why hadn't we talked about this in couples
earlier. Yeah.
therapy? Why, if this was happening, if you were feeling this way, why not talk to me about it? Why not communicate?
Yeah.
And I got a lot of, I don't know.
That's a real shame.
Yeah.
Because what this really sounds to me like was this guy got into something that he wasn't ready for. In that he
Yes.
liked the idea of a relationship and fun with somebody who's passionate about music and concerts, but didn't build strong enough a foundation to continue. And now he didn't know how to get out.
Exactly.
And so he was having these mental battles with himself to say, okay, I'm really not into Wawira from the onset, but I'm in too deep to pull out. Because if I do, it will raise anxiety. And
Hmm.
knowing that I'm raising somebody's anxiety is now messing with my depression because now I can't be happy about being with myself.
And also his empathy. He knew how hard it would be for me to take.
Mm.
And so that's why he left it so long, is because he knew it would be a big hit.
Now, were you guys one of those couples who break up and then get back together?
No.
So it was just that one cut and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, we did talk a little bit after because
Mm.
we adopted a dog together.
Mm-hmm.
And we were living together, and so there was a lot of stuff that we kind of had to negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm the kind of person where I know after a breakup I need to kind of completely detox.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't handle it if there's any kind of um if there's like a door left open, I can't handle it.
Of course.
Yeah.
Hey, so I'm guessing when that happened, you cut him off?
Yes.
In what way? Blocked him on social media,
Well,
etc., etc.?
yeah, and also kind of deleting photos and telling him that I needed to at that point I needed to have space. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
He did the thing where, he wanted to be friends and he wanted to know that I was okay, and that's the empathy again. But I was like, "Nuh-uh.
It doesn't work like that.
Nope, can't do it."
So how long would you say it took you to get back on your feet from this whole thing?
I don't know that I fully am yet, to be honest.
How long has it been?
It's been about 3 months.
Oh, this is still fresh, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. But to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
the days after the breakup, I realized instantly my anxiety was way better.
Really?
Mhm.
Isn't it funny how sometimes the thing that you think is adding, could get rid of your anxiety is the one that is feeding it,
Yeah.
and that is
Yeah.
what was happening in this situation.
100%.
I
I
wonder
think
what I wonder
the
what's happening
anxiety
with his depression.
maybe it's better. I don't know. Maybe now that he doesn't feel like he um is failing me in some way and failing
Mm-hmm.
himself, I feel like we're the two big kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you've really got me thinking about this whole thing, and how dealing with mental health really needs to be something that's put at the forefront of things, because now if you're to get with someone else, one of the first questions or things you'd be tabling is the fact that you deal with anxiety, and also highlighting how you deal with it and how you would like somebody to be the same, and if they have the same problem, to walk that same path with you. And if they can't do that, then at least you know that, okay, I can't do this.
Exactly. And also being upfront with, if you have some sort of, mental health struggle too,
Mm-hmm.
you either seek help
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and, have a really solid foundation and someone to go to when you're struggling
Yeah.
so you can take care of yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
or, that's not something that I can do anymore because that was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's I'll close this out with a couple of things that possibly you may consider for whoever you're going to be with next.
Mhm.
I got 5 top things that I always really, really think about when relationships come to mind and setting a really strong foundation. The first one is friendship. I mean, that goes without saying.
Mhm.
If you have a really deep friendship with someone, it becomes easier for you to have a long lasting engagement, because at the core of you guys are friends.
Yeah.
And you know that if you remove love at the top of the equation, if love dies, you got something to fall back on. And if your friendship dies, then you really know for a fact that this thing is done.
Right.
Right? Second up, communication.
Mhm.
That is a major thing. If communication is a good and integral part of a relationship, you'll be able to say, hey, do you know what? My anxieties make me feel this way. And that person should be able to empathize and communicate back to you and say, okay, this is what I'm understanding, and this is how I can give you that support.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, it's not really gonna work. Sexual attraction is another one,
Mhm.
because people often cheat because they don't have sexual attraction to their partner. So if you guys have something that is solid like that, then it just kind of makes things watertight. The fourth thing is mutual respect for each other.
Mhm.
If he's going through something and he says, "Hey, Wawira, can I just have a little bit of space?" You should be able to respect that, knowing that you
Mhm.
got a good communication foundation to understand that whenever he says this, it means this, and
Right.
you won't feel like, okay, this guy is getting and leaving me because I'm exhibiting my anxiety. And then, last but not least, of the things that I really, really always think about and value is trust and faith in someone.
Yeah.
For as long as you have solid trust within each other and you trust what he's saying and she trusts, what the other person is saying, it becomes very difficult to break that.
Right.
And yeah, for as long as you have those, you avoid negativity, resentment, and that could form the foundation of a really, really, really solid relationship.
You're so right. Yeah, because those are definitely things that we were either missing or
Yeah,
lost.
yeah, yeah. But no, thank you so much for sharing that experience, and I really hope you continue to grow stronger with the way that you deal with your anxiety. From the sound
Yeah.
of things, because you're so willing to seek help, I feel like you're on top of it.
Yeah, I'm doing much better.
And I'm confident that there are some people here listening to this who genuinely do deal with depression and anxiety, and they could take away something meaningful from this.
Yeah.
Right. So, for those who've been listening to this episode of The Feeling Station, 3 main lessons came out. The first one, the bare minimum is not enough, and you always need to try and do more than the bare minimum. Lesson number 2, don't stay with someone who's not willing to seek help, particularly with their mental health, because that will lead you to lesson number 3, which is just make your own mental health worse and prove to you that something is not right. You've been listening to another episode of The Feeling Station. I'm your host, Tinto, and I look forward to catching you in next weekend's episode. Hey.
Tell me what you're feeling.
Sati zandaro raini and chake zaini.
Tell me what you're feeling. Now that it's over.
Sati zandaro raini and chake zaini.
Let me talk about my feelings. Let me talk about my feelings, yeah.
Rudoi motoru noto kujidziro amai.
Kujidziro amai. Love is a fire.
Rudoi motoru noto kujidziro amai.